You were never hurt by disrespect itself, but by the moment you let it rule your judgment and your peace. When someone dismisses you or treats you unfairly, the real battle begins inside your own mind, where reactions rise faster than reason, and old habits decide how you respond. This is where Stoic discipline begins, and where most people lose themselves without noticing it. Stay here with this channel and subscribe if you want a steady companion for this kind of training, where every idea brings you back to control over your own thoughts and actions, instead of the chaos of other people's behavior. In this video, you will learn how to face disrespect without losing yourself, how to separate what is yours to control from what never was, and how to build a mind that does not collapse under the weight of other people's opinions. Number 1. Accept only what rests within your own control, always. Listen closely, because this is where most suffering begins, not in the insult itself, not in the cold look, not in the rude reply, not in the silence that follows when someone treats you as if your dignity is negotiable. Your suffering begins the moment you hand your mind over to what another person does, the moment you decide that their disrespect has authority over your peace, the moment you forget that your mind belongs to you only when you govern it with reason. You do not control whether other people respect you. You do not control their character. You do not control their habits of speech. You do not control the mood they bring into a room. You do not control whether they are fair. You do not control whether they are childish. You do not control whether they are blind to your worth. All of that lies outside your command. It was never yours. It will never be yours. And the sooner you stop reaching for what cannot obey you, the sooner your life begins to return to you. What is yours is smaller and far more powerful. Your judgment is yours. Your response is yours. Your conduct is yours. Your refusal to become unruly is yours. Your choice to remain upright when another person is not is yours. Your ability to hold your tongue until reason has spoken is yours. Your decision to keep your character clean while others soil theirs is yours. That is the ground on which a free person stands, not on the shifting opinion of others, not on applause, not on recognition, not on being treated well by people who have not mastered themselves. You must begin here. If you do not separate what is within your power from what is not within your power, then every disrespectful person becomes a tyrant in your mind. They touch you once and you bleed for a week. They speak carelessly and your inner life collapses into argument and revenge. They overlook you and you spend the evening rehearsing your offense. They cut you off in conversation and your thoughts become small and bitter. Why? Because you have tied your peace to the behavior of people who are not trained to protect your peace. This is weakness dressed as sensitivity. It is not strength to be ruled by every slight. It is slavery. A free mind does not ask every passerby for permission to be calm. A free mind does not make its home in another person's mouth. A free mind is built on the knowledge that insult is only an event until you make it a wound. The event may be real. The wound is chosen. The event may be ugly. The wound is optional. That is the hard truth many people refuse to face because it demands discipline. Do not waste your days demanding that others become reasonable before you will be peaceful. That is not wisdom. That is dependency. It is a child's bargain. It says, I will govern myself only if they behave well. But other people may not behave well. They may not become clear. They may not become kind. They may not become just. And if your inner life waits on their improvement, then your inner life will remain a hostage forever. The first task is to see the boundary clearly. Ask yourself, what is in my command right now? My opinion of this moment, my use of my voice, my next action, my willingness to endure discomfort without losing myself, my decision not to lie, not to lash out, not to plead for worth I already possess as a rational human being. These are yours. The rest is weather. You may stand in it. You may be moved by it, but you do not own it. When someone does not respect you, the mind rushes to grasp for control in the wrong direction. It wants to force an apology. It wants to punish. It wants to prove. It wants to win the argument. It wants to restore wounded pride. It wants to tell a story in which you are finally seen. But ask yourself honestly, what part of this is duty and what part is vanity? What part is the protection of virtue and what part is the hunger to be admired? What part is justice and what part is wounded self-importance? Many people call this self-respect when it is really only a frantic defense of ego. You must learn to be severe with your own thoughts. Not cruel, severe. There is a difference. Cruelty is blind and restless. Severity is clear and disciplined. Cruelty attacks. Severity examines. Cruelty despairs. Severity corrects. When disrespect comes your way, the first target is not the other person. The first target is your own judgment. What did you decide this disrespect meant? Did you decide it meant you were lesser? Did you decide it meant you had been defeated? Did you decide it meant you had to prove your worth? Did you decide it meant your day was ruined? Each of those judgments hands power to the wrong place. A Stoic does not ask, how do I make this person treat me better? A Stoic asks, how do I keep my mind from becoming worse because of this? That is the true battlefield, not the room, not the office, not the family table, not the message thread. The battlefield is the judgment you add after the event. The insult is one thing. The interpretation is another. The first may happen. The second is where your freedom is either preserved or surrendered. So when you are slighted, begin with restraint. Pause. Do not rush to answer. Do not allow the first heat of blood to become your first sentence. People think the pause is weakness. It is not. The pause is where reason enters. The pause is where your human power shows itself. Animals react. Men and women who are ruled by impulse react. But the disciplined person creates space between the blow and the reply. In that space, the mind asks what is fitting, what is just, what is necessary, what is beneath me, what is beyond me. If you need a practice, then practice this every time disrespect appears. Before speaking, take one breath and say inwardly, "This concerns my conduct, not their soul." Then ask, "What is mine to do now, not tomorrow, now?" This is how you train the mind to stop wandering into imagined revenge and return to duty. You do not need to feel noble before acting nobly. You act nobly so that the feeling may follow in time. That is the order of discipline. Action first, clarity later. This is how a scattered life becomes a governed life. You will be tempted to think that acceptance means approval. It does not. To accept what is outside your control is not to bless it. It is not to agree with it. It is not to say that disrespect is good. It is to say that reality has arrived and I will not waste my strength fighting what is already here. I may object in the proper way. I may set a boundary, I may speak plainly, I may remove myself, I may refuse cooperation, but I will not rage at the existence of what I cannot erase with anger. Anger changes nothing in the world and corrodes the one who carries it. You must also reject a childish fantasy that respect from others will heal the part of you that still doubts itself. It will not. If you need the world to keep applauding you before you can feel solid, then you are building your life on loose soil. The weather will ruin you. The Stoic does not seek a life without friction. He seeks a mind that grows stronger under friction. He does not ask to be spared the contempt of others. He asks to be made fit to meet it without losing his center. This is why you must practice voluntary discomfort. Not for theater, not for pride, not to prove toughness, but to prove to yourself that comfort is not your master. Go without immediate reply. Sit with the first sting of disrespect without acting on it. Let the desire to retaliate rise and fall without feeding it. Go through a day without seeking external reassurance. Do a task that is difficult while your mind complains. Carry out small duties even when you feel slighted. Why? Because a mind trained only in ease becomes fragile. A mind trained in difficulty becomes usable. There is a severe dignity in a person who can remain unmoved by insult when justice requires calm. Such a person is not dead inside, he is awake. He knows that to be governed by the opinions of the unwise is to become less than human. He knows that another person's disrespect reveals their condition more than his own worth. He knows that if he lets their disorder become his disorder, then the insult has succeeded twice, once in their mouth and once in his mind. The first cannot always be prevented. The second must never be accepted. Now consider what disrespect often exposes in you. It exposes vanity. It exposes dependence. It exposes the desire to appear important in the eyes of those who may not deserve your attention. Be honest. Much of our pain is not from being harmed, but from being unrecognized. We want our value confirmed on the spot. We want others to speak to us as we imagine we deserve. But why should your peace wait on that? Are you a servant to recognition? Are you a slave to tone? Are you so delicate that one careless person can unmake your inner order? Shame on that fragility. Tear it out by the root. A sound mind does not ask to be treated as important before it behaves with importance. It does not need the applause of fools to stand upright. It knows that the quality of a life is not measured by how loudly others honor it, but by how faithfully it honors virtue. If someone respects you, then receive it without swelling. If they do not, then let your duty remain unchanged. Do the next right thing. Speak well if speaking is needed. Stay silent if silence is wiser. Leave if presence would make you false. Stay if staying would serve justice. The point is not to be liked. The point is to be right in your own soul. You must also examine your own contribution without flinching. Sometimes people disrespect us because they sense that we have already abandoned ourselves. Perhaps you have trained people to ignore your limits because you never defend them. Perhaps you have invited contempt by speaking without conviction and acting without consistency. Perhaps you have been eager to please and slow to stand firm. None of this excuses the disrespect of others. It only reminds you that your own discipline matters. We do not control everything that happens to us, but we can often reduce the opportunities for disorder by becoming more precise in our own conduct. So take inventory. Do you speak too quickly when challenged? Do you over-explain when one honest sentence would suffice? Do you let resentment build because you refuse to address problems early and clearly? Do you react like an injured child when you could respond like a rational adult? Do you ask people to honor boundaries you yourself do not honor? This is not self-blame, it is self-command. A person serious about freedom studies his own habits with the same attention he gives to the faults of others. In fact, he gives more attention to his own, because that is the only place his power truly begins. Now understand the noble use of acceptance. Acceptance of what is outside your control does not make you passive. It makes you effective. When you are not wasting energy on what cannot be altered by your will, you have more energy for what can. You can choose your words with precision. You can decide to leave the room. You can decide not to answer that message immediately. You can decide to request clarity once and then stop begging for it. You can decide to continue your work with dignity. You can decide not to carry the face of offense all day, as if your expression itself were a protest. These are the acts of a mind that knows its territory. A person who clings to what is uncontrollable is always tired. He spends himself on the impossible. He tries to control moods, reactions, memories, reputations, and the inward weather of other people. Then he calls himself exhausted, but exhaustion is often the price of confusion. Clarity is simpler. Clarity says, this is mine, this is not mine. This I will tend, this I will release, this I will improve, this I will endure, this I will not let invade my judgment. This distinction is not merely useful, it is the foundation of peace. You may ask how to hold this distinction under pressure. Train it in small things. In the morning before your day begins, ask yourself, what may disturb me today that I do not control? Someone may dismiss me. Someone may speak sharply. Someone may misunderstand me. A plan may fail. A task may be delayed. A person may be rude. Then answer, and what is mine in each case? My response, my tone, my patience, my justice, my refusal to sink to their level. This simple rehearsal is not empty habit, it is preparation for battle. The mind that has already considered adversity is less likely to collapse when it arrives. Then during the day use the pause. The pause is your shield. When the disrespect comes, do not move instantly into defense. Ask whether the moment calls for correction or for endurance. Not every offense deserves a speech. Not every insult deserves a rebuttal. Not every rude person deserves access to your attention. Some are not worth the labor. Others are best answered with clarity once and then with silence. Wisdom does not spill itself everywhere. Wisdom chooses, it reserves its force for what matters. There is a cost to constant reaction. Each time you answer disrespect with uncontrolled emotion, you teach your mind that it must always be on guard. You become watchful in the wrong way. You look for offense everywhere because offense has become the center of your life. This is a miserable way to live. It shrinks the soul. It turns the day into a series of injuries. It makes you easy to provoke and difficult to trust. Reject that path. Choose a mind that notices disrespect without becoming defined by it. You will also need to practice saying less. Many injuries grow when we keep feeding them with words. The offended self loves to narrate. It tells the story again and again. It selects every detail that supports its case. It inflates the insult. It invites others to validate the wound. But a disciplined mind interrupts this habit. It says, enough. I know what happened. I do not need to keep repeating it to become more real. The event is over. My task is now. The more you repeat a wound, the more room it takes in your soul. Cut the repetition. Return to work. Work itself is part of the cure, not frantic activity, purposeful duty, clean labor. The mind that serves a worthy task is less likely to be consumed by insult. When you turn back to what is yours to do, you remind yourself that life is not centered on being seen correctly by others. It is centered on living correctly yourself. This may sound severe to a person addicted to validation. Good, it should sound severe. Truth is often severe at first because it strips away a lie we have used as shelter. You are not here to be cherished by everyone. You are here to act with virtue in whatever conditions you are given. That is enough. That is more than enough. If you are respected, then let it be accepted without dependence. If you are not respected, then let your character remain untouched. This is not coldness. It is sovereignty. The external world may move as it will. Your own mind must not kneel before it. At the end of the day, perform an examination of the self. This is not a performance, it is a reckoning. Ask yourself, when disrespect reached me today, did I preserve reason or surrender it? Did I remember what was in my control, or did I chase what was not? Did I answer with measured firmness or with vanity? Did I remain just, or did I become petty? Did I keep my tongue under command, or did I let it run ahead of wisdom? Did I make a man of myself, or did I make excuses? These questions are stern because your life is short and there is no time for pretense. Do not be afraid of seeing your weakness. Weakness seen is the beginning of strength. Weakness hidden becomes habit. Weakness denied becomes fate. Look at it plainly. You may find that you are overly eager to be understood, that you resent being overlooked, that you cannot bear not having the last word, that you are too fond of proving yourself. Good. Now you have something real to train against. The unexamined person remains childish because he never sees the shape of his own chains. The examined person begins to break them. Remember this too. The person who disrespects you may be acting from ignorance, fear, habit, or their own damaged judgment. That does not make their conduct right, but it can prevent you from falling into hatred. Hatred is too heavy a burden for a reasonable person to carry. You are not asked to excuse all wrongdoing. You are asked to remain just while others are not. You are asked to keep the mind clean while observing the ugliness of human conduct without imitation. That is a harder task than revenge and a nobler one. So do not chase the fantasy that everyone will finally see your worth. Some will not, some cannot, some do not want to. Their failure is not your fate. Your fate is written in your own judgments and actions. If you keep your reason intact, then disrespect loses much of its power. It can sting, it can inconvenience, it can reveal the limits of another person's character, but it cannot rule you unless you let it. And why would you let it? Why hand over your inner house to any stranger who knocks with rude hands? Stand where your will is strongest. Stand inside your own command. Use no more force than the moment requires, and no less than duty demands. Speak clearly when clarity is needed. Stay silent when silence protects your character. Leave when staying would corrupt your peace. Endure what must be endured. Correct what can be corrected. Release what cannot be controlled. This is not weakness, this is mastery. Each day presents the same test in different clothing. Someone cuts you off. Someone belittles you. Someone ignores your work. Someone speaks as if you are small. The old self rushes forward and demands a theater of response. The trained self steps back and asks for the measure of the thing. Is this worth my peace? Is this within my power? Is this an invitation to virtue or a trap for vanity? That is how you live like a free person, not by being untouched by insult, but by refusing to let insult govern your choices. You must be willing to look ordinary in the eyes of the world while remaining extraordinary in the only place that matters, your own soul. Let others misunderstand, let others underestimate, let others forget. You are not here to collect their applause. You are here to become just. You are here to become steady. You are here to become the kind of person who does not collapse when treated unfairly. That kind of strength is quiet. It does not beg to be seen. It shows itself in restraint, in honesty, in a refusal to become what it condemns. And when the mind whispers that it is unfair to have to endure such treatment, answer it firmly. Yes, it is unfair. Much of life is. What then? Will the first surrender my reason because the world is uneven? Will the first abandon self-command because others lack it? Will the first waste this one life proving that I deserved better, or will I use this one life to become better? That question can save a man if he is willing to answer it honestly. There is no shame in being disrespected by those who are themselves undisciplined. There is shame only in becoming undisciplined in return. Guard this well. Your task is not to guarantee respect from every corner. Your task is to deserve respect from your own conscience. That is the witness that does not lie. That is the tribunal that matters. When you can lie down at night without fear of your own judgment, then you have achieved something greater than social approval. You have achieved inner order. So begin again tomorrow, and again the next day. In the morning, remind yourself what belongs to you and what does not. In the first moment of offense, pause before reaction. During the day, return to your duty instead of your irritation. In the evening, examine yourself without pity and without excuse. This is the work, not dramatic, not glamorous, but real, and real work changes a life. Let other people keep their disrespect. It is a poor possession. Let them carry it if they wish. You will carry something better, you will carry your judgment, you will carry your restraint, you will carry your character, you will carry the knowledge that your peace is not rented from the outside world. It is earned within by discipline. Hold to that. Hold to it when you are praised and when you are dismissed. Hold to it when you are understood and when you are mocked. Hold to it when the world is generous and when it is cruel. What is yours cannot be taken unless you surrender it. Do not surrender it. The day is short. The mind is powerful. The choice is before you now. Either you will continue living as though every rude person has authority over your spirit, or you will finally claim the power that was yours all along. Accept what is not in your control. Govern what is. That is enough. That is everything. Number 2. Refuse every insult that demands your inner permission first. An insult has no power to enter your inner life by its own strength. It arrives as sound, as words, as a look across a room, as a careless remark, or as silence where acknowledgement was expected. It stands outside you for a brief moment. Then something far more important happens. Your own judgment opens the door or keeps it closed. Most people never notice this moment. They believe the injury happened the instant another person spoke. Yet the deeper injury begins only when the mind agrees to carry those words as truth. If you fail to recognize this difference, you will spend your life blaming other people for wounds that your own judgment continued to reopen long after the event had passed. Look honestly at your own experience. How many sleepless nights have been caused by words that ended hours before? How many peaceful mornings have been surrendered because your thoughts kept repeating a conversation that no longer existed? The person who offended you may have forgotten the exchange before sunset, while your own mind continued to rehearse every sentence as though repeating it could somehow restore your dignity. This is not strength. It is the surrender of self-government. It is the habit of allowing another person's lack of discipline to become your own. The examined life begins when you stop asking why people speak carelessly and begin asking why your peace depends upon their speech. This question is uncomfortable because it removes the excuse that someone else controls your inner condition. The undisciplined mind prefers excuses because excuses require no effort. Reason requires effort. Reason demands that you look directly at your own participation in every disturbance. It asks whether the event itself harmed you or whether your judgment continued the harm long after the event had ended. Most insults seek something from you without announcing their true purpose. They seek your anger. They seek your insecurity. They seek your desire to defend yourself. They seek your attention. They seek your willingness to abandon reason for impulse. If they receive none of these things, they lose much of their force. Their success depends less upon the speaker than upon the listener. This is why your first responsibility is never to answer the other person. Your first responsibility is to examine whether your own mind is preparing to surrender its freedom. There is an invisible question hidden inside every insult. It asks whether you will allow another person's judgment to become your own. Many people answer yes without realizing they have answered at all. Someone calls them weak, and they immediately begin searching for evidence that they are weak. Someone calls them foolish, and they spend days trying to prove they are intelligent. Someone dismisses their efforts, and suddenly all previous accomplishments lose their value. Notice what has happened. They did not merely hear criticism. They accepted an invitation to doubt themselves according to another person's measure. You must refuse that invitation before anything else. Refusal does not require raised voices. It does not require revenge. It does not require clever arguments. It begins silently within the mind. It says, "These words belong to another person's judgment, not to my character. My character will be measured only by my actions, my choices, and my commitment to virtue. If criticism contains truth, I will examine it carefully. If it contains falsehood, I will not decorate it with my attention. This distinction demands constant practice because the mind naturally rushes toward immediate reaction. It wants certainty before understanding. It wants defense before examination. It wants victory before wisdom. Yet reason follows a different order. It first asks whether the statement deserves belief. Then it asks whether any correction is needed. Finally, it asks what action serves virtue rather than pride. This order protects the soul from becoming a servant to every passing opinion. Imagine someone tells you that you are incapable, dishonest, or insignificant. Before your emotions begin constructing an identity from those words, pause and ask one simple question. Have I examined this claim according to reason, or have I accepted it because it stirred my feelings? Feelings are real experiences, but they are unreliable judges. They rise quickly and disappear just as quickly. Character grows more slowly. Character belongs to repeated choices, not passing emotions. The disciplined person therefore becomes a careful guardian of every judgment. He does not accept praise without examination, and he does not accept insults without examination. Both can deceive. Praise can inflate vanity just as easily as insults can awaken insecurity. Neither deserves immediate belief. Both must stand before the court of reason. This practice creates remarkable freedom because it removes the authority of public opinion from the center of your life. Many people imagine freedom as the ability to make unlimited choices. Stoic freedom is different. It is the ability to remain governed by reason regardless of circumstances. If another person's disrespect can dictate your emotions throughout the day, then your freedom has already been surrendered. You have handed authority over your inner life to someone who may not even possess authority over their own. Notice how often people become trapped by invisible arguments. They replay conversations while driving. They rehearse perfect responses while lying awake. They imagine future confrontations that never arrive. Their body sits in one place while their attention wanders through imaginary debates. Meanwhile, the present moment disappears. Duties remain unfinished. Relationships receive only partial attention. Opportunities for virtue pass unnoticed because the mind has become occupied with defending an image of itself that exists only inside imagination. Reason calls you back from this endless courtroom. It reminds you that your task is not to win every argument inside your thoughts. Your task is to perform your present duty with excellence. Whatever lies before you deserves your full attention. If you are working, work honestly. If you are speaking with your family, be fully present. If you are resting, rest without dragging old conflicts into the evening. This return to the present is not avoidance, it is discipline. It refuses to waste life arguing with memories. Each morning, you should prepare your mind before the world begins making demands upon it. Sit quietly for a few moments before reaching toward distraction. Tell yourself that today you may encounter impatience, arrogance, misunderstanding, or disrespect. None of these things will determine your character unless you allow them to shape your judgments. Your purpose today is not to control every encounter. Your purpose is to preserve reason within every encounter. This morning, preparation strengthens the mind before challenges arrive, instead of repairing damage afterward. As the day unfolds, pay close attention to your first thoughts. The first thought often arrives without permission. The second thought belongs much more to your own choice. Someone interrupts you. The first thought may be irritation. The second thought can become examination. You ask whether irritation deserves agreement. You ask whether the interruption truly threatens your character. You ask whether responding calmly serves justice better than responding emotionally. This brief examination gradually transforms reaction into deliberate action. Do not expect perfection during this training. You have likely spent years strengthening habits that pull your attention toward offense. Habits do not disappear because you reject them once. They weaken through repeated refusal. Every time you interrupt an automatic judgment, you loosen its grip. Every time you decline to carry an unnecessary insult through the remainder of your day, you strengthen your capacity for self-command. There will be moments when criticism is justified. Do not fear these moments. Welcome them as opportunities for improvement. A person committed to virtue does not reject correction simply because it arrives through unpleasant words. Instead, separate the manner of delivery from the content itself. If truth exists within the criticism, accept the truth without becoming resentful toward its messenger. If no truth exists, release it without bitterness. Either way, your attention remains directed toward virtue rather than wounded pride. This requires unusual honesty because pride constantly disguises itself as self-respect. Pride insists that every disagreement threatens your worth. Pride demands immediate defense. Pride believes silence always signals defeat. Yet genuine self-respect behaves differently. It remains steady whether praised or criticized because it measures itself according to character rather than reputation. Reputation belongs to other minds. Character belongs to your own choices. Consider how much unnecessary suffering disappears when you stop treating every opinion as a verdict. Opinions change constantly. One person admires what another person rejects. One generation praises what another generation forgets. If your peace depends upon these shifting judgments, then your peace will remain unstable. Anchor yourself instead to principles that do not change. Ask each evening whether you acted with honesty, fairness, courage, and self-restraint. These questions provide firmer guidance than applause ever could. The evening examination is one of your greatest teachers. Before sleep, review your day without excuses and without cruelty. Ask yourself where you accepted an insult too quickly. Ask where emotion outran reason. Ask where silence would have been wiser than argument. Ask where correction was necessary but avoided through fear. This review is not meant to produce shame. It is meant to produce clarity. A clear mind improves. A defensive mind repeats the same mistakes. There is another danger hidden within insults that many people overlook. Sometimes they become strangely attached to being offended. Offense gives them a story. It gives them an identity. It gives them someone to blame for their unhappiness. As long as they remain occupied with another person's faults, they postpone examining their own. This is one of the most subtle forms of self-deception because it feels justified while quietly preventing growth. Refuse this temptation completely. Another person's behavior should never become an excuse for neglecting your own discipline. Their lack of restraint cannot excuse yours. Their dishonesty cannot justify your dishonesty. Their anger cannot authorize your anger. Every encounter remains another opportunity to practice the person you claim to become. Sometimes refusing an insult means speaking firmly. Sometimes it means leaving without argument. Sometimes it means correcting falsehood with calm precision. Sometimes it means saying nothing at all. Wisdom does not follow one fixed response. Wisdom examines each circumstance separately. The constant principle is this: never allow wounded emotion to become the architect of your action. Let reason decide the appropriate response after emotion has settled. Remember that every person you meet carries unseen struggles, confused judgments, and imperfect understanding. This recognition does not excuse harmful conduct, but it prevents unnecessary hatred. Hatred burdens the one who carries it more heavily than the one toward whom it is directed. A disciplined mind chooses justice without becoming consumed by hostility. It corrects when necessary and moves forward when correction serves no useful purpose. You will know your practice is deepening when insults begin losing their urgency. They may still reach your ears, but they no longer occupy your thoughts for days. They no longer determine the quality of your morning. They no longer interrupt your work. They no longer steal your attention from people who deserve your presence. This change does not happen because the world has become kinder. It happens because your judgments have become wiser. The greatest victory over insult is not proving another person wrong. The greatest victory is discovering that your inner peace no longer depends upon their opinion. That freedom cannot be granted by society. It cannot be purchased. It cannot be inherited. It must be cultivated through disciplined judgment every single day. So begin today with one simple commitment. Refuse to believe every thought that rises within you after another person's words. Examine each judgment before accepting it. Hold every insult outside the gates of your reason until it has been tested. Accept only what improves your character. Release everything else without resentment. In doing so, you preserve the one possession that deserves your greatest protection, a mind governed by reason rather than reaction. When you master this practice, you will discover that no insult possesses the authority to diminish you unless you first grant it permission. That permission has always belonged to you, and from this day forward you no longer need to give it away. Number 3. Examine your judgments before condemning another human being completely. The moment another person disappoints you, your mind begins writing a story before it has gathered the facts. One action becomes an entire character. One careless sentence becomes a permanent identity. One mistake becomes proof that the whole person is beyond redemption. This happens so quickly that you mistake your judgment for reality. Yet the disciplined mind refuses to confuse its first impression with the truth. It understands that the greatest danger is not another person's failure, but the speed with which your own thinking abandons reason. You may believe that your suffering comes from dishonest people, selfish people, or disrespectful people, but look more carefully. Your suffering often grows because you rush to conclusions that your reason has not yet examined. You decide that someone intended to insult you before asking whether they truly did. You conclude that a disagreement proves malice. You assume that another person's weakness exists solely to burden your life. These judgments appear convincing because they agree with your emotions. They rarely survive careful examination. Reason demands patience where impulse demands certainty. The undisciplined mind hungers for immediate answers because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. It would rather hold a false conclusion than remain still long enough to discover a true one. Yet wisdom accepts temporary uncertainty as the price of accurate judgment. It would rather wait than condemn unfairly. It would rather examine than assume. It would rather understand than merely react. Consider how often your peace has been disturbed by motives you assigned to another person without evidence. A delayed reply becomes rejection. A distracted expression becomes contempt. A forgotten promise becomes proof that someone never cared. You rarely notice how much of this suffering was constructed by interpretation rather than fact. The event itself remained incomplete. Your imagination rushed ahead and finished the story according to fear, pride, or resentment. The disciplined life begins with a simple admission that few people are willing to make. Your first interpretation is not automatically your wisest interpretation. This realization weakens the arrogance that quietly governs many relationships. It reminds you that your perspective, while real, remains limited. You witness actions. You rarely witness the hidden struggles, fears, exhaustion, confusion, or ignorance that produce those actions. This does not require you to excuse harmful conduct. It requires you to distinguish between understanding and approval. You may recognize that another person acted from confusion without declaring the action acceptable. Justice remains necessary. Boundaries remain necessary. Honest speech remains necessary. Yet these things become clearer when separated from the fog of premature condemnation. Observe what happens inside your own mind after someone offends you. Before the conversation has even ended, you begin collecting evidence to support your conclusion. Every past disagreement suddenly appears connected. Every imperfect memory strengthens your case. Soon you no longer see a human being standing before you. You see only the image your judgment has created. This image becomes easier to hate because it has been stripped of complexity. The rational mind refuses to participate in this habit. It insists that every person remains more than their worst moment. It recognizes that a single failure cannot fully describe an entire life. You know this truth when applied to yourself. You ask others to understand your intentions even when your actions fall short. Yet when another person fails, you often deny them the same fairness you quietly request for yourself. This contradiction reveals something important. You naturally judge yourself by your intentions while judging others by their visible behavior. The disciplined mind corrects this imbalance. It does not become naive. It simply becomes consistent. It grants others the same careful examination it hopes to receive. This consistency strengthens justice, because justice cannot exist where standards change according to personal preference. When someone behaves poorly, ask yourself a different question than the one your emotions suggest. Instead of asking how offensive their behavior was, ask what judgment inside your own mind is producing the greatest disturbance. Perhaps you have concluded that imperfect people should never cross your path. Perhaps you believe that others must always recognize your efforts. Perhaps you secretly expect the world to reward your virtue with constant fairness. These hidden expectations create suffering because reality has never promised such conditions. The world contains people governed by fear, appetite, pride, confusion, impatience, and ignorance. Expecting every person to behave according to reason places your peace upon a foundation that cannot support it. The wiser expectation is simpler. You prepare yourself to encounter imperfect human beings while committing yourself not to imitate their imperfections. This preparation begins each morning. Before your responsibilities claim your attention, remind yourself that you will meet people whose judgments differ from your own. Some will misunderstand you, some will disappoint you, some will speak without thinking. None of these encounters force you to abandon reason. Your responsibility is not to redesign their character before breakfast. Your responsibility is to preserve your own. As the day unfolds, train yourself to notice the instant when assumption begins replacing observation. Someone interrupts you during a conversation. Observe only what happened. A person interrupted. Do not immediately add that they intended disrespect. Someone forgets an obligation. Observe the forgotten obligation. Do not immediately conclude that they value you less than others. This discipline appears small, yet it transforms the quality of your thinking because it separates reality from unnecessary invention. Most emotional suffering enters through this hidden addition. The facts remain limited. Interpretation expands them into personal injury. The disciplined mind refuses to decorate reality with conclusions it cannot yet defend. It remains faithful to what is known while resisting the temptation to invent certainty. There is another danger hidden within condemnation. Every time you reduce another human being to a single fault, you quietly weaken your own character. You train yourself to think without balance. You strengthen impatience instead of understanding. You replace investigation with accusation. These habits eventually turn inward. The person who condemns others carelessly soon condemns himself with equal severity whenever he falls short. A reasonable person understands that moral growth belongs to every human being. No one arrives fully disciplined. Every person struggles against habits that resist improvement. If you expect perfection before extending fairness, you will spend your life surrounded by enemies created largely through unrealistic judgment. This understanding should produce humility rather than superiority. You possess faults that remain invisible to you today. Others have likely shown patience toward weaknesses you have not yet recognized. Remembering this does not reduce accountability, it deepens gratitude. It reminds you that you also depend upon understanding while pursuing improvement. When correction becomes necessary, deliver it without hatred. Hatred clouds perception. It seeks victory instead of truth. Calm reason seeks improvement wherever improvement remains possible. Speak clearly. State the facts honestly. Protect what must be protected. Then release the desire to control how another person receives your words. Their response belongs to their own judgment. Your responsibility ends where your conduct has fulfilled the demands of virtue. One of the greatest tests of discipline occurs when someone repeats the same mistake. Frustration begins whispering that change is impossible. It encourages you to abandon patience altogether. Yet even here your task remains unchanged. Judge each situation according to reason rather than accumulated resentment. Past disappointments may inform your decisions, but they should never replace clear observation of the present moment. Sometimes wisdom requires distance. Choosing distance does not require bitterness. You may decide that another person's habits make close trust unwise. Such decisions can be made without contempt. You are not required to welcome every person into your confidence. You are required to avoid poisoning your own soul through unnecessary hatred. Notice how much lighter your mind becomes when it stops carrying detailed records of every offense committed against you. Many people imagine this record protects them. In reality, it imprisons them. Every remembered grievance occupies attention that could have strengthened character instead. The disciplined mind remembers lessons while releasing emotional attachment to the injury itself. This practice demands continual attention because the imagination enjoys replaying scenes of conflict. It edits conversations, invents perfect replies, and deepens resentment through repetition. Interrupt this habit the moment you notice it. Ask yourself whether this mental rehearsal improves your character. If it does not, return your attention to your present duty. Your life deserves better use than endless trials conducted inside memory. Another powerful exercise is to examine your certainty whenever you hear yourself using absolute judgments. Be cautious whenever your mind insists that someone always behaves badly or never acts honorably. Human beings rarely fit such simple descriptions. Absolute language often reveals emotional exaggeration rather than careful reasoning. Replace certainty with observation. Replace sweeping conclusions with specific facts. This habit preserves fairness even during conflict. As evening approaches, conduct an honest examination of your judgments. Do not ask merely whether others behaved well. Ask whether your own thinking remained faithful to reason. Did you assume motives without evidence? Did pride enlarge a minor disagreement into personal betrayal? Did impatience silence your willingness to understand? Did anger persuade you that another person's entire character could be measured by one difficult moment? These questions reveal where genuine improvement begins. Do not fear discovering that your judgments were mistaken. A mistaken judgment corrected today becomes wisdom tomorrow. A mistaken judgment defended out of pride becomes the beginning of future suffering. The disciplined person values truth more than appearing correct. This willingness to revise one's own thinking protects the soul from becoming rigid. Understand also that examining your judgments does not make you passive. It makes your actions more precise. When you eventually decide to speak, establish a boundary, withdraw trust, or forgive, your decision rests upon reason rather than emotional impulse. Such actions possess quiet strength because they are no longer driven by wounded pride. They are guided by virtue alone. People often believe that harsh judgment demonstrates strength. In reality, uncontrolled judgment usually reveals insecurity. The mind, eager to condemn, often seeks relief from examining itself. It finds comfort in identifying faults elsewhere because doing so postpones the difficult labor of personal discipline. Refuse this escape. Every hour spent measuring another person's shortcomings is an hour unavailable for improving your own. The person committed to reason asks a different question at the end of each encounter. Instead of asking whether the other person deserved condemnation, ask whether you preserved your own integrity throughout the interaction. Did you remain honest? Did you remain fair? Did you remain self-controlled? Did you refuse to speak beyond what you truly knew? These questions keep your attention where genuine authority exists. Over time, this discipline reshapes every relationship. You become slower to accuse and quicker to investigate. You become less interested in assigning blame and more interested in understanding reality accurately. People may mistake this calmness for weakness because they have grown accustomed to immediate outrage. Let them misunderstand. Your purpose is not to satisfy public expectations. Your purpose is to become governed by reason even when emotion invites easier paths. The greatest victory in human relationships is not proving that someone else is entirely wrong. The greater victory is refusing to let another person's imperfection destroy your own commitment to justice. This victory cannot be achieved through clever words or forceful arguments. It is earned quietly within the mind each time you examine your judgments before accepting them as truth. From this day forward, place every first impression before the discipline of reason. Let every accusation wait until evidence has been honestly considered. Let every emotional conclusion stand before the test of careful examination. You will still encounter difficult people. You will still witness selfishness and disrespect. Yet you will no longer allow hurried judgment to govern your inner life. Instead, you will become a person whose thoughts move deliberately, whose conclusions remain measured, and whose character refuses to sacrifice justice for the comfort of certainty. That is the path of genuine self-mastery, and it begins each time you choose to examine your own judgment before condemning another human being completely. Number 4. Guard your character instead of chasing another person's approval. The greatest danger to your character rarely announces itself as danger. It arrives quietly, wearing the appearance of acceptance. It persuades you to change your words so others will applaud them. It encourages you to hide your convictions so no one feels uncomfortable. It teaches you to measure your worth by approval instead of virtue. At first, these compromises seem harmless. You tell yourself they are small adjustments made for peace. Yet each compromise asks for the same payment. It asks you to trade a piece of your character for the uncertain promise of being accepted. Look carefully at the life you are building. Every decision answers a question whether you recognize it or not. Are you trying to become a person of steady character, or are you trying to become a person who is easily praised? These paths appear close together in the beginning, but they slowly separate until they lead to entirely different lives. One produces inner freedom, the other produces endless dependence upon the changing opinions of people whose judgments you can never control. Many people spend years believing they seek happiness when they are actually seeking approval. They adjust their behavior according to whoever stands before them. They speak differently depending upon the audience. They silence honest convictions to avoid criticism. They agree with ideas they do not truly accept because disagreement feels costly. They smile while resentment quietly grows beneath the surface. Outwardly, they appear successful at pleasing others. Inwardly, they become strangers to themselves. The disciplined mind recognizes this loss immediately. Character cannot remain whole while constantly bending toward every passing opinion. A person who belongs to everyone eventually belongs to no one, especially not to himself. When your principles change according to the expectations of others, you no longer possess principles. You possess preferences shaped by fear. Fear often disguises itself as politeness. It whispers that honesty should wait for a more comfortable moment. It suggests that truth may be postponed if silence earns approval. It convinces you that preserving another person's opinion is more important than preserving your own integrity. This fear does not always create dramatic betrayals. More often it creates countless small acts of self-abandonment. These small acts slowly reshape the entire character until the person no longer recognizes the values he once claimed to hold. Ask yourself a difficult question without searching for comforting answers. How many decisions during the past month were guided primarily by the hope that someone else would think well of you? Perhaps you accepted unnecessary responsibilities because you feared disappointing others. Perhaps you remained silent when justice required speech. Perhaps you apologized for something that did not violate your conscience simply to restore another person's approval. Each of these moments deserves examination because each reveals where external opinion has begun governing the inner life. The desire to be respected is natural. The desire to be approved by everyone is impossible. When you confuse these two desires, suffering follows. Respect may arise naturally from consistent character, but approval depends upon countless judgments beyond your authority. Some people admire honesty, others resent it. Some appreciate discipline, others mock it. If your peace depends upon universal approval, your peace will remain forever unfinished, because no human life can satisfy every expectation placed upon it. This is why reason asks a different question each day. Instead of asking whether others accepted your actions, ask whether your actions deserved acceptance according to virtue. This question returns authority to its proper place. Your task is not to command another person's opinion. Your task is to govern your own conduct. Character grows through repeated choices that no audience may ever witness. It develops when you refuse to speak falsely, even though lying would benefit you. It strengthens when you fulfill responsibilities despite receiving no recognition. It matures when you remain fair toward someone who cannot repay your fairness. None of these actions guarantee praise. They were never intended to. Their value exists within the action itself, because virtue does not require applause to become worthwhile. Notice how unstable life becomes when reputation replaces character as your primary concern. Every conversation becomes an opportunity for anxiety. Every disagreement feels threatening. Every criticism appears dangerous. Every compliment becomes addictive. Your emotional condition rises and falls according to reactions that belong entirely to other minds. This is not freedom, it is dependence disguised as social success. The disciplined person seeks something far more durable. He seeks agreement between his actions and his conscience. This agreement cannot be granted by public approval because conscience answers to reason rather than popularity. A crowd may celebrate dishonesty today and condemn it tomorrow. Virtue remains unchanged regardless of the crowd's opinion. Each morning, prepare yourself by remembering that approval is not among the things placed under your authority. Before beginning your day, remind yourself that some people may misunderstand your intentions despite your honesty. Others may overlook your efforts despite your diligence. Still others may dislike you despite your fairness. None of these outcomes diminish your responsibility to remain truthful, just, and self-controlled. Carry this reflection into every interaction. Whenever you notice yourself hesitating before speaking honestly, ask what exactly you are protecting. Are you protecting another person's comfort, or are you protecting your own desire to remain admired? These two motives often appear similar while leading toward opposite destinations. Compassion speaks truth with wisdom. Fear hides truth to preserve approval. There is another habit that quietly weakens character. It is the habit of comparing your life against the recognition received by others. You see another person praised while your own efforts pass unnoticed. Immediately the mind begins questioning whether virtue still matters. It wonders whether recognition should become the true goal instead. Yet recognition has never served as reliable evidence of moral worth. Many admirable lives remain unnoticed. Many celebrated lives lack genuine integrity. If applause becomes your measure, confusion will soon replace judgment. Guard yourself against envy, because envy directs attention toward possessions that never belong to you. Another person's reputation is not your responsibility. Another person's popularity is not your assignment. Another person's recognition cannot improve or diminish your character. Every moment spent measuring someone else's standing is a moment taken away from strengthening your own discipline. The practice of guarding character requires continual observation of your intentions. Before acting, pause briefly and ask why you are about to do what you have chosen. Are you acting because reason recognizes the action as right, or because you hope someone will admire you afterward? This single question reveals hidden motives with remarkable clarity. It exposes how often pride disguises itself as generosity and how frequently vanity imitates virtue. Do not become discouraged when you discover impure motives. Discovery marks the beginning of correction. The unexamined motive quietly governs behavior. The examined motive loses much of its influence because reason has finally brought it into the light. Continue refining your intentions without demanding perfection from yourself overnight. Character is strengthened through repeated correction rather than instant transformation. There will be moments when protecting your integrity requires disappointing someone. This reality troubles people who have spent years seeking universal approval. They assume every disappointment signals failure. Yet disappointment sometimes becomes the unavoidable consequence of honest living. If you refuse dishonest requests, someone may become dissatisfied. If you establish reasonable boundaries, someone accustomed to your compliance may object. If you decline to participate in wrongdoing, others may criticize your decision. These responses belong to them. Your responsibility remains the same. Preserve virtue even when it costs comfort. This discipline also transforms the way you receive praise. Appreciation may come, and you may receive it with gratitude, yet do not allow praise to become nourishment without which you cannot function. The person dependent upon praise soon begins performing goodness instead of practicing goodness. Actions become calculated for appearance rather than directed by principle. Eventually, the distinction between genuine virtue and public performance disappears. Protect yourself from this subtle corruption by remembering that the most important witness to your conduct is present even when no one else is watching. Your own reason observes every compromise. Your own conscience records every unnecessary surrender. No public admiration can erase private awareness when you knowingly abandon what is right. Likewise, no public criticism can diminish the quiet confidence that accompanies faithful conduct. During difficult conversations, return your attention repeatedly to what belongs within your authority. You cannot decide whether another person appreciates your honesty. You cannot command their agreement. You cannot remove every misunderstanding. You can choose your words carefully. You can remain respectful without surrendering truth. You can refuse to answer anger with anger. You can leave the conversation knowing that your own conduct remained aligned with virtue, even if the outcome remained imperfect. As evening arrives, perform a careful examination of your day. Ask yourself where you acted merely to gain approval. Recall the moments when fear of criticism influenced your decisions. Notice whether you concealed your convictions for the sake of acceptance. Then ask where you remained faithful to your principles despite uncertainty. These reflections should not become opportunities for guilt. They should become lessons that prepare tomorrow's conduct. Gradually, you will notice an important change. Situations that once produced anxiety begin losing their power over you. You become less concerned with appearing impressive and more concerned with becoming trustworthy. Conversations become simpler because you no longer spend them managing impressions. Decisions become clearer because they rest upon principles rather than predictions about how others might react. This clarity brings remarkable peace because it removes endless calculations designed to secure approval that may never arrive. Understand that genuine confidence does not emerge from hearing favorable opinions repeatedly. It grows from proving to yourself through consistent action that your character remains dependable under pressure. Confidence built upon praise collapses whenever praise disappears. Confidence built upon disciplined conduct remains steady because its foundation lies within your own choices. There will always be people who misunderstand your intentions regardless of how carefully you explain them. There will always be individuals who judge according to appearance rather than substance. Accept this reality without resentment. Their judgments belong to their own reasoning. Your responsibility is not to manage every misunderstanding, but to ensure your conduct remains worthy of respect, whether or not respect is immediately given. Do not allow temporary loneliness to persuade you that compromise is necessary. Many people abandon principle because standing apart feels uncomfortable. Yet solitude accompanied by integrity is far healthier than companionship purchased through dishonesty. Character strengthened in quiet moments becomes capable of enduring public pressure without surrendering itself. The disciplined life asks for remarkable courage because it removes familiar sources of comfort. It teaches you to seek stability within virtue rather than admiration. It asks you to become satisfied with the approval of a well-governed conscience instead of endless public recognition. This path appears demanding because it requires daily vigilance over thoughts, motives, and actions, yet it also grants something the pursuit of approval never can. It grants independence. Each day becomes an opportunity to protect the one possession that truly belongs to you. Wealth may disappear, reputation may rise and fall, position may change, relationships may shift, public opinion may reverse without warning. Character alone remains entirely within the reach of your own discipline. Guard it carefully because nothing external can compensate for its loss. When someone refuses to appreciate your honesty, remain honest. When your restraint goes unnoticed, remain restrained. When fairness receives no reward, remain fair. The value of these actions never depended upon recognition. They depend upon your commitment to living according to reason regardless of circumstance. At the close of every day, let this single question guide your examination more than any other. Did I protect my character today, or did I trade pieces of it for acceptance that was never mine to control? Answer honestly without excuse. Then rise the following morning, prepared to guard your inner life with greater care than before. A person who protects character above approval cannot be controlled by changing opinions because his deepest allegiance belongs not to the crowd, but to virtue itself. In that unwavering commitment lies the quiet strength that no rejection can diminish and no applause can improve. Number 5. Answer disrespect with calm reason and unwavering self-command. Disrespect tests far more than your patience. It reveals who governs your inner life. Many people believe they lose control only after another person has spoken harshly, yet the loss begins much earlier. It begins when the mind decides that another person's behavior has the authority to command its own. From that moment onward, every word becomes a trigger instead of a sound. Every disagreement becomes a threat instead of a circumstance, and every slight becomes permission to abandon reason. This is where the disciplined life separates itself from the restless one. The disciplined person refuses to let another person's lack of self-command become the excuse for losing his own. When someone speaks without respect, the first movement inside you is rarely chosen. Your body tightens, your thoughts accelerate, your attention narrows. The desire to answer immediately rises with remarkable force. None of this should surprise you. Human nature feels the pull of impulse before it remembers the guidance of reason. What matters is not the arrival of this impulse, What matters is whether you place your trust in it. Impulse asks for immediate expression. Reason asks for careful examination. Only one of these paths protects your character. Many people mistake speed for strength. They imagine that answering instantly proves confidence. In reality, immediate reaction often reveals that the mind has surrendered its authority. The person who cannot delay his response has already become dependent upon the behavior of another. His emotions now follow commands issued from outside himself. This dependence is subtle because it disguises itself as courage. Yet courage does not consist in speaking first. Courage consists in remaining governed by reason when every impulse urges surrender. You must become deeply familiar with the space between what happens and what you choose to do. This space is easily overlooked because it exists only for a brief moment, yet your entire character is shaped there. In that quiet interval, before your words leave your mouth and before your actions become permanent, you still possess complete freedom. You may nourish resentment, or you may strengthen discipline. You may become another source of disorder, or you may remain faithful to virtue. Everything depends upon what occupies that brief pause. Train yourself to recognize this moment before it disappears. The next time another person addresses you with contempt, resist the temptation to answer immediately. Do not confuse silence with weakness. Silence often represents the highest form of self-command because it demonstrates that your judgment has not been captured by emotion. The mind that pauses does not become passive, it becomes deliberate. It refuses to surrender its authority simply because another person has already surrendered theirs. Ask yourself a question that rarely enters the thoughts of an undisciplined person. What kind of human being am I becoming through this response? Notice that this question directs attention inward rather than outward. It refuses to make another person's conduct the center of the moment. Instead, it examines whether your own actions remain worthy of respect. This single shift changes everything. The conversation is no longer about defeating another person. It becomes an opportunity to preserve your own integrity. Disrespect often awakens an invisible hunger to restore wounded pride. You begin imagining replies that will embarrass the other person. You search for words sharp enough to repay the injury. You convince yourself that balance can only be restored through retaliation. Yet consider what truly happens. You become occupied by revenge rather than reason. Your peace no longer belongs to you. It depends upon delivering a satisfying response. If that opportunity never comes, your frustration continues growing. You have chained your tranquility to an outcome that was never placed within your authority. The disciplined mind refuses this bargain. It understands that self-command cannot depend upon victory in conversation. The purpose of speech is not to satisfy injured pride. The purpose of speech is to express what reason judges appropriate. Sometimes reason requires correction. Sometimes it requires firmness. Sometimes it requires complete silence. The guiding principle remains constant. Never allow emotion to decide what wisdom should govern. You may wonder whether calmness invites further disrespect. This fear often drives unnecessary conflict. Many people believe that only visible anger earns respect, yet observe carefully. Anger rarely commands lasting respect. It usually creates temporary fear, deeper resentment, or greater confusion. Calmness, when joined with unwavering conviction, possesses a different kind of strength. It communicates that your conduct cannot be manipulated through provocation. Such steadiness often speaks more clearly than loud words ever could. This does not mean accepting injustice without action. Stoic discipline never asks you to become indifferent to right and wrong. It asks you to distinguish justice from vengeance. Justice seeks what is appropriate according to reason. Vengeance seeks emotional satisfaction. These motives appear similar while producing entirely different lives. Justice protects dignity without corrupting character. Vengeance often sacrifices character while pretending to defend dignity. Whenever conflict arises, examine the purpose behind your next sentence. Are you trying to illuminate the truth, or are you trying to wound another person? Are you attempting to improve the situation, or are you simply rewarding your own anger with expression? Honest answers to these questions reveal whether reason still governs your mind. The disciplined person welcomes such examination because he values self-knowledge above temporary emotional relief. There is remarkable power in speaking fewer words than your emotions demand. Many arguments continue only because each person feels compelled to answer every accusation. The restless mind believes silence admits defeat. The rational mind understands that unnecessary words often strengthen confusion rather than resolve it. Choose speech carefully. Let each sentence serve virtue instead of impulse. If no sentence can accomplish this, restraint becomes the wiser choice. Practice this discipline long before serious conflict arrives. During ordinary conversations, resist interrupting others simply because you disagree. Allow another person to finish speaking before preparing your response. Observe how quickly the mind wishes to defend itself even when no genuine threat exists. These small exercises strengthen patience in moments of greater difficulty. Character develops through daily habits rather than isolated acts of heroism. Each morning, prepare yourself for encounters that may test your composure. Tell yourself that today someone may speak carelessly, misunderstand your intentions, or challenge your decisions unfairly. Do not rehearse clever replies. Prepare your judgment instead. Resolve that no external behavior will persuade you to abandon reason. This preparation does not remove difficulty from the day. It prevents surprise from overwhelming discipline. Throughout the day, pay close attention to the first signs of agitation. You may notice tension in your voice, hurried breathing, or an increasing desire to interrupt. Treat these signals as reminders rather than enemies. They indicate that your attention must return to reason before emotion claims greater influence. A person who observes his own condition early prevents many unnecessary regrets later. Another useful practice is to separate the event from the interpretation while the conversation is still unfolding. Listen carefully to what was actually said rather than what your fears immediately add. The mind often enlarges disrespect through assumption. A careless remark becomes deliberate humiliation. A disagreement becomes personal rejection. Examine whether these conclusions rest upon evidence or imagination. Accurate observation weakens emotional exaggeration and allows wiser action to emerge. You will sometimes discover that another person's harsh words contain useful correction. Pride naturally resists this possibility because it prefers complete innocence. Yet the disciplined person remains committed to truth wherever truth appears. If criticism reveals a genuine weakness, accept the lesson without accepting unnecessary hostility. Improvement matters more than preserving the illusion of perfection. In this way, even unpleasant encounters become opportunities for moral progress. There will also be moments when another person's accusations lack fairness altogether. In such cases, remember that false judgments spoken by another do not become true through repetition. You are not obligated to carry every mistaken opinion into your own conscience. If clarification serves justice, offer it calmly. If clarification serves no purpose, allow the misunderstanding to remain where it originated. Another person's confusion does not require your endless participation. The desire to have the final word often disguises itself as a search for justice. Examine this desire honestly. Ask whether continuing the argument truly serves reason or merely satisfies pride. Many conversations end not because agreement has been reached, but because one person finally chooses self-command over endless conflict. This decision reflects strength rather than surrender. It demonstrates confidence rooted in character instead of public victory. As evening approaches, review the encounters that challenged your composure. Do not focus first upon what others did. Turn your attention toward your own conduct. Where did emotion begin influencing your judgment? Which words would have been better left unspoken? Which moments demonstrated genuine restraint? Which situations revealed lingering attachment to external approval? This examination should remain exact without becoming harsh. Its purpose is improvement, not self-condemnation. Over time, you will notice subtle changes. The comments that once disturbed your entire day lose much of their force. Conversations that previously ended in regret conclude with greater clarity. You become slower to anger because you recognize how little anger contributes to wise action. The absence of constant emotional struggle creates unexpected freedom. Energy once consumed by resentment becomes available for meaningful work, faithful relationships, and disciplined thought. Do not expect other people to recognize this transformation immediately. Some may continue testing your patience because they mistake calmness for weakness. Let them hold their opinion. Your discipline was never established to impress observers. It exists to preserve your own character. The quality of your inner life cannot depend upon whether others understand it. Continue choosing reason, even when misunderstanding remains. Understand also that self-command extends beyond visible behavior. It reaches into the private conversations you conduct within your own mind after the conflict has ended. Many people avoid outward arguments only to continue fighting inwardly for hours. They replay each exchange repeatedly, inventing sharper responses and nourishing silent resentment. This hidden habit deserves the same discipline as spoken words. Once the situation has ended, return your attention to present duties. Do not transform memory into a permanent battlefield. If the mind insists upon revisiting the encounter, ask what practical lesson remains available. Perhaps clearer communication is needed next time. Perhaps firmer boundaries should be established. Perhaps greater patience must be cultivated. Learn the lesson, then release the emotional attachment. Carry wisdom forward without carrying bitterness beside it. You should also remember that another person's disrespect often reveals more about the condition of their own judgment than about your worth. People governed by anger frequently spread anger wherever they go. People lacking discipline often attempt to provoke others into sharing their disorder. Refuse this invitation. You are under no obligation to imitate conduct that reason clearly rejects. There is profound freedom in becoming difficult to provoke. This freedom does not arise because life becomes easier. It arises because your inner government becomes stronger. You no longer depend upon pleasant circumstances to remain composed. You no longer require perfect treatment before acting according to virtue. Your steadiness accompanies you into every conversation because it belongs to your discipline rather than to your surroundings. At the close of each day, ask yourself one final question. Did I answer difficulty according to the standards of reason, or according to the demands of wounded emotion? Let the answer instruct tomorrow's practice. Do not search for excuses. Do not exaggerate your failures. Simply observe where further discipline is needed and begin again. Every encounter with disrespect offers two paths. One path leads toward greater dependence upon impulse, where every insult dictates your emotions and every disagreement weakens your peace. The other path leads toward increasing self-command, where reason quietly governs speech, judgment, and action regardless of another person's behavior. The choice is renewed with each conversation. Guard that choice carefully. When your words arise from calm judgment instead of agitation, you preserve something more valuable than victory in an argument. You preserve the integrity of your own character. No harsh remark can take this from you. No accusation can diminish it. No disrespect can corrupt it unless you willingly surrender your command of yourself. Therefore, answer every challenge not with the restless urgency of wounded pride, but with the steady authority of a mind that has learned the highest form of strength is to remain governed by reason when every temptation urges otherwise. Number 6. Strengthen your discipline until opinions lose their power entirely. Most people believe they are controlled by difficult people. They are mistaken. They are controlled by the importance they assign to other people's opinions. This difference changes everything. The words spoken by another person do not enter your character by force. They become powerful only after your own judgment grants them authority. Until that moment, they remain nothing more than sounds shaped by another mind. Yet the undisciplined person rarely notices this hidden exchange. He assumes that every opinion deserves his attention, every criticism demands his defense, and every judgment requires an emotional response. He lives as though his peace belongs to everyone except himself. Ask yourself a question that many avoid because it exposes a painful truth. How much of your daily behavior is quietly directed by the fear of what someone else might think? Before speaking, you wonder how your words will be received. Before making a decision, you imagine the approval or disapproval that may follow. Before acting according to your convictions, you hesitate because another person's opinion appears larger than your own commitment to reason. This hesitation slowly becomes a habit. Eventually, you no longer recognize it as fear. You begin calling it caution, diplomacy, or wisdom. Yet beneath these comfortable names often hides a mind that has forgotten where genuine authority belongs. The disciplined life begins when you stop treating public opinion as a guide for your character. Opinions change more quickly than seasons. What earns admiration today may invite criticism tomorrow. What one person praises another may condemn. If your direction depends upon these shifting judgments, then your inner life will never find stability. You will spend your years adjusting yourself to moving targets while neglecting the one standard that deserves your unwavering loyalty. The standard of virtue guided by reason. Understand the difference between reputation and character. Reputation exists inside the thoughts of other people. Character exists within your own choices. Reputation rises and falls according to information you cannot fully control. Character grows according to actions that remain entirely within your own discipline. One belongs to the world, the other belongs to you. Confusion begins when you protect the first more carefully than the second. Look honestly at the moments when another person's opinion changed the course of your day. Perhaps one careless remark destroyed hours of peace. Perhaps a lack of recognition made your efforts feel meaningless. Perhaps criticism caused you to question decisions that reason had already approved. These experiences reveal that your attention has drifted away from what truly belongs to you. The world has not stolen your peace. You have placed it in hands that were never meant to carry it. This realization should not discourage you. It should awaken you. What has been handed away through habit can be reclaimed through discipline. Every act of self-command begins with recognizing where your authority has been misplaced. Once you see this clearly, the work becomes practical rather than mysterious. You no longer wait for people to become kinder before you become calmer. You begin strengthening the only part of life that genuinely answers to your effort. Discipline is not built during extraordinary moments. It is established through ordinary decisions, repeated with unwavering consistency. Every day offers countless opportunities to practice independence from opinion. You choose not to explain yourself unnecessarily. You resist the urge to seek reassurance after every decision. You complete important work even when no praise follows. You continue acting justly towards someone who remains ungrateful. These quiet acts seem insignificant, yet together they reshape the entire direction of your character. Many people misunderstand discipline because they imagine it concerns only visible behavior. True discipline reaches much deeper. It governs attention before it governs action. It decides which thoughts deserve continuation and which deserve dismissal. When another person's opinion enters your awareness, discipline asks whether this judgment contributes to virtue or merely invites distraction. If the opinion offers truthful correction, receive it with gratitude. If it serves only vanity, resentment, or confusion, allow it to pass without building a home inside your mind. Notice how quickly the imagination enlarges opinions that should have remained small. One conversation becomes the center of the day. One expression on another person's face becomes evidence of rejection. One criticism becomes proof of failure. The undisciplined mind magnifies external judgments until they appear larger than reality itself. The disciplined mind quietly returns every opinion to its proper size. It reminds itself that another person's thoughts cannot define a life devoted to virtue. There is great strength in becoming difficult to influence by praise as well as criticism. Many people believe only criticism threatens their peace, yet praise often creates an equally dangerous attachment. The person who depends upon admiration soon begins arranging his actions to preserve it. He avoids necessary risks. He hides uncomfortable truths. He fears disappointing those who once applauded him. In trying to protect approval, he gradually abandons honesty. Train yourself to receive praise without becoming dependent upon it. Accept appreciation with gratitude, then return immediately to your duties. Do not allow compliments to become the measure of your worth. The same discipline that protects you from criticism also protects you from vanity. Both praise and blame belong outside your control. Neither should become the foundation of your identity. Each morning, prepare your mind before entering a world filled with opinions. Sit quietly for a few moments and remind yourself that today people will form judgments about you. Some judgments will be fair, others will arise from misunderstanding, incomplete knowledge, or personal preference. None of these judgments determine your responsibility. Your responsibility remains unchanged regardless of what others conclude. You are called to act with justice, honesty, moderation, and courage, whether these qualities receive recognition or not. Carry this preparation into every interaction throughout the day. Whenever you notice yourself becoming anxious about another person's reaction, pause before continuing. Ask what exactly lies within your authority at this moment. Your words are yours, your intentions are yours, your effort is yours. The conclusions formed by another mind belong elsewhere. Once this distinction becomes clear, unnecessary anxiety begins losing its influence. There will be moments when someone questions your choices, despite your sincere effort to act wisely. Resist the impulse to defend yourself endlessly. Many people waste enormous amounts of life trying to control impressions that cannot truly be controlled. Explain yourself when clarity serves justice. Beyond that, allow your consistent conduct to speak more convincingly than repeated argument. Character expressed through steady action possesses greater authority than endless explanation. The training of discipline also requires learning to endure temporary discomfort without abandoning principle. Sometimes doing what reason demands will create misunderstanding. Sometimes honesty will cost popularity. Sometimes fairness will disappoint those who expected favoritism. Accept these outcomes without bitterness. If your commitment to virtue depends upon universal approval, then it was never a commitment to virtue at all. It was merely another strategy for earning acceptance. Observe your thoughts carefully after receiving criticism. Does your mind immediately begin constructing arguments in your defense? Does it replay the conversation repeatedly? Does it imagine future opportunities to restore your reputation? These habits consume attention without improving character. Interrupt them deliberately. Return your focus to what remains unfinished before you today. Every moment spent strengthening present virtue serves you more faithfully than hours spent repairing imaginary conversations inside your memory. The evening offers another opportunity for discipline. Before sleep, review your day without searching for praise or blame. Ask yourself whether you remained faithful to reason when opinions surrounded you. Did admiration tempt you toward vanity? Did criticism tempt you toward discouragement? Did you abandon worthwhile action because you feared misunderstanding? Did you preserve honesty when silence would have earned easier approval? Let these questions become your teachers. They reveal the places where further discipline is needed. Do not become discouraged if opinions still disturb you. Disturbance simply reveals where practice must continue. The disciplined life is not achieved through a single decision. It grows through patient repetition. Every time you refuse to chase approval, you weaken an old habit. Every time you choose virtue over popularity, you strengthen a new one. Progress often arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, until one day you realize that situations which once dominated your emotions now pass through your mind without lasting disturbance. Remember that another person's opinion never becomes your obligation merely because it has been spoken aloud. People judge according to their experiences, preferences, fears, ambitions, and limitations. They see only fragments of your life, while you alone witness the daily struggle of your intentions, choices, and efforts. Why then would you allow incomplete observations to outweigh the judgment of a conscience honestly examined? Guard yourself also against the temptation to measure your worth through comparison. Comparison invites endless dissatisfaction because someone will always possess greater recognition, greater influence, or greater admiration. If these become your standards, contentment remains forever beyond reach. Replace comparison with examination. Ask not whether another person receives more approval than you. Ask whether you acted more wisely today than yesterday. This question directs attention toward genuine improvement rather than endless competition. Discipline becomes especially important when you experience success. Success often attracts admiration that quietly feeds the appetite for more admiration. Soon the mind begins serving applause instead of virtue. Watch this tendency carefully. Continue performing ordinary duties with the same seriousness you possessed before recognition arrived. Let success become another opportunity to practice humility rather than another excuse for attachment. Likewise, during seasons of misunderstanding or criticism, refuse to conclude that your efforts have lost their value. The worth of honest action never depends upon immediate appreciation. Seeds grow beneath the surface long before they become visible. In the same way, disciplined character often develops unnoticed before its strength becomes evident during difficult circumstances. Trust the process of virtue rather than the speed of public recognition. You will know your discipline is maturing when your emotional condition no longer rises and falls with every opinion that reaches your ears. You become steady because your foundation has changed. Instead of building your peace upon uncertain judgments, you build it upon deliberate choices renewed each day. External voices continue speaking, but they no longer determine your direction. They become information to examine rather than commands to obey. This transformation creates remarkable freedom. You stop wasting energy managing impressions. You stop fearing criticism before it even arrives. You stop chasing compliments that disappear almost as quickly as they are spoken. The attention once scattered among countless opinions returns to its rightful place. It becomes available for disciplined work, honest relationships, thoughtful reflection, and faithful action. Do not expect the world to notice this change immediately. Some may continue judging you unfairly. Others may misunderstand your silence or your restraint. Let them think according to their own understanding. Their opinions remain their responsibility. Your responsibility is to continue strengthening the habits that reason approves. Every difficult encounter now becomes another opportunity to practice independence. Every disagreement becomes another exercise in self-command. Every criticism becomes another invitation to examine yourself honestly without surrendering your peace. Instead of fearing these moments, begin welcoming them as occasions to test whether your discipline has become genuine or remains dependent upon comfortable circumstances. At the end of each day, ask yourself one final question. Did I allow another person's opinion to direct my choices, or did I remain faithful to reason regardless of what others believed? Answer this question with complete honesty. If you discover weakness, begin again tomorrow without self-pity. If you discover progress, remain humble and continue practicing. The strongest person is not the one who never hears criticism or never encounters disapproval. The strongest person is the one whose character remains anchored when praise disappears and blame increases. Such strength cannot be purchased, borrowed, or inherited. It is earned through daily discipline, careful examination, and unwavering commitment to what truly belongs within your control. Strengthen your discipline patiently until opinions become only passing sounds rather than masters of your inner life. Let your judgment be guided by reason instead of applause. Let your actions be shaped by virtue instead of popularity. Let your peace rest upon the condition of your own character rather than the changing voices of the crowd. When you reach that point, you will possess something far greater than approval. You will possess a mind that remains free because it has finally learned that no opinion can rule a person who has first learned to rule himself. Number 7. Choose virtue before pride whenever conflict tests your character. Conflict does not create your character. It reveals which part of you has been ruling your life all along. When another person challenges you, contradicts you, insults you, or refuses to recognize your efforts, something hidden immediately rises within your mind. That rising force demands victory before understanding. It demands recognition before justice. It demands that you protect your image even if your integrity suffers in the process. Most people mistake this voice for strength. It is not strength. It is pride asking to govern where reason should stand. Pride speaks with remarkable confidence because it fears examination. It insists that every disagreement is a contest to be won. It persuades you that yielding on even the smallest point diminishes your worth. It tells you that silence appears weak, that patience invites disrespect, and that admitting fault destroys authority. Yet every one of these conclusions places your attention upon appearances rather than virtue. Pride does not ask whether you acted justly. It asks only whether you appeared victorious. Look honestly at your own experience. Think about the conflicts that continued far longer than they should have. Consider the relationships damaged by unnecessary arguments. Recall the nights spent replaying conversations inside your thoughts, searching for better replies that might have defeated another person. Ask yourself what truly kept those conflicts alive. Was it the search for truth, or was it the refusal to let pride accept anything less than complete victory? This question is difficult because it removes the comfortable belief that other people alone created the conflict. The disciplined mind understands that conflict presents two separate struggles. One occurs between yourself and another person. The second occurs within your own judgment. The first may or may not end according to your wishes. The second always belongs within your authority. If you lose command of yourself while attempting to overcome someone else, you have already suffered the greater defeat. No argument successfully won can compensate for the loss of self-government. Virtue asks different questions than pride. Pride asks how to appear superior. Virtue asks how to remain just. Pride asks how to protect reputation. Virtue asks how to protect character. Pride seeks immediate satisfaction. Virtue accepts temporary discomfort when reason demands it. These paths rarely lead in the same direction. Every conflict quietly asks you to choose which guide will determine your next action. Many people imagine that humility requires weakness. They confuse humility with surrender because they have never distinguished it from fear. Stoic humility does not abandon conviction. It abandons vanity. It allows reason to correct mistaken judgments without feeling diminished. It recognizes that admitting error strengthens character because truth matters more than personal pride. Such humility requires far greater courage than stubbornness because it demands honesty before the self. Notice how pride changes the way you listen. Once pride begins speaking, another person's words no longer become opportunities for understanding. They become obstacles to overcome. While the other person speaks, your attention prepares defenses instead of seeking clarity. You interrupt inwardly before speaking outwardly. You assume motives before hearing explanations. Your goal quietly shifts from discovering what is true to proving yourself right. At that moment, reason has already surrendered its place. The disciplined person practices a different habit. During disagreement, he deliberately slows his judgment. He listens not because he assumes the other person is correct, but because he refuses to let haste replace examination. Even mistaken words deserve careful hearing before careful response. This discipline protects the mind from becoming the servant of assumption. Every morning, prepare yourself for the possibility that conflict may enter your day without invitation. Someone may question your decisions. Someone may reject your efforts. Someone may misunderstand your intentions despite your honesty. Before these encounters arrive, settle one question firmly within yourself. Decide that preserving virtue matters more than preserving pride. Once this decision has been made in quiet moments, it becomes easier to remember during difficult ones. Throughout the day, pay attention to the earliest signs that pride has begun directing your thoughts. You may notice the urgent desire to interrupt. You may feel an immediate need to justify every action. You may become unwilling to consider even the smallest possibility that your own judgment requires correction. These moments deserve careful observation. They reveal where discipline must become stronger. When conflict appears, ask yourself a question that pride never wishes to answer. What does virtue require from me right now? Not what would satisfy my emotions, not what would impress observers, not what would embarrass the other person. Ask only what reason recognizes as right. Sometimes the answer will require firm speech. Sometimes it will require patient silence. Sometimes it will require admitting a mistake without excuse. Sometimes it will require walking away because continuing the argument serves no useful purpose. Virtue chooses according to reason rather than emotional appetite. Do not fear acknowledging your own errors. Many people spend enormous energy defending positions they secretly know to be mistaken. They believe consistency requires never changing their minds, yet genuine consistency belongs to devotion to truth, not devotion to personal opinion. The person who refuses correction imprisons himself within yesterday's misunderstanding. The person who welcomes correction grows stronger because he values wisdom above appearance. There will be moments when another person behaves unjustly despite your best efforts. In such situations, pride whispers that their wrongdoing permits your own. It suggests that fairness no longer matters because they abandoned fairness first. Reject this reasoning immediately. Another person's conduct never grants permission to corrupt your own character. Their choices belong to them. Yours remain under your own authority. Do not surrender responsibility for your actions simply because someone else neglected responsibility for theirs. One of the clearest signs of growing discipline is the ability to disagree without hatred. Hatred often arises when pride transforms disagreement into personal identity. Instead of discussing ideas or actions, the mind begins condemning the entire person. This habit poisons judgment because it replaces careful evaluation with emotional certainty. The disciplined person refuses to make this exchange. He addresses conduct while remembering the humanity of the one before him. Examine your expectations carefully. Pride secretly believes that reasonable people should always recognize your good intentions. It assumes that honest effort deserves immediate appreciation. It expects fairness from everyone regardless of their own level of discipline. Reality offers no such guarantee. Human beings often misunderstand one another. They frequently judge hastily. They sometimes act from fear rather than wisdom. Accepting these realities protects your peace because it removes expectations the world has never promised to fulfill. Practice speaking fewer words during moments of tension. Pride often measures strength by the length of its defense. Virtue measures strength by the quality of its judgment. Before adding another sentence to an argument, ask whether those words serve justice or merely prolong conflict. Many unnecessary disagreements continue because each participant believes the next explanation will finally produce agreement. Wisdom recognizes that some minds cannot be persuaded through repeated argument. In such moments, restraint becomes an act of discipline rather than defeat. Another valuable exercise involves examining your emotional condition after conflict has ended. Notice whether your thoughts continue searching for ways to restore wounded pride. Perhaps you imagine future conversations in which you finally say everything perfectly. Perhaps you silently celebrate the other person's failures because they appear to confirm your own importance. These habits reveal that the conflict has not truly ended. It has simply moved from the outside world into your own mind. Refuse to nourish these inner arguments. Return your attention to present duties where genuine progress remains possible. Each evening, conduct an honest review of your conflicts. Ask whether you protected virtue more carefully than pride. Did you remain truthful even when truth cost comfort? Did you preserve fairness despite disappointment? Did you acknowledge mistakes without unnecessary resistance? Did you refuse to answer harshness with harshness? Did your desire to appear correct ever outweigh your desire to become better? Let these questions become mirrors rather than weapons. Their purpose is correction, not condemnation. Understand that choosing virtue before pride does not guarantee peaceful relationships. Some people remain committed to conflict regardless of your discipline. Others interpret calmness as weakness because they understand only force. Their judgments remain outside your authority. Your responsibility is not to ensure universal agreement. Your responsibility is to ensure that your own conduct remains faithful to reason under every circumstance. The greatest victories often pass unnoticed because they occur entirely within the mind. No audience applauds when you choose patience instead of retaliation. No public recognition follows the quiet decision to admit fault honestly. No celebration accompanies the refusal to continue a pointless argument. Yet these invisible victories gradually reshape your character. They strengthen the habits that allow reason to govern even when emotions demand immediate satisfaction. Do not overlook the importance of small conflicts. Everyday frustrations provide excellent opportunities for training. A misunderstanding at work, a disagreement within the family, an impatient remark from a stranger. Each event offers practice. If you cannot preserve discipline during ordinary disagreements, you will struggle greatly when more serious trials arrive. Character grows through repeated faithfulness in small moments long before it is tested in larger ones. There is also wisdom in recognizing that another person's approval cannot confirm your virtue, just as their disapproval cannot remove it. Pride constantly seeks validation from outside itself. Virtue requires no such dependence. It stands securely upon actions examined by reason. When your conscience remains clear, you no longer need every disagreement to end with your reputation fully restored. You become content, allowing time and consistent conduct to reveal your character. Remember that every human being remains imperfect, including yourself. Pride resists this truth because it prefers certainty over humility. Yet, accepting your own capacity for error creates remarkable freedom. You become less defensive because you no longer require the illusion of perfection. You become more teachable because correction no longer threatens your identity. You become more patient with others because you remember your own unfinished work. As your discipline deepens, you will notice that conflicts lose much of their emotional weight. They become opportunities for practicing justice rather than occasions for proving superiority. Your attention shifts away from winning and toward acting well. This change transforms not only your conversations, but your entire inner life. Peace grows because fewer situations possess the power to disturb your judgment. Whenever conflict enters your day, remind yourself that you stand before a choice more important than the disagreement itself. You may feed pride until it governs your speech, your thoughts, and your actions, or you may strengthen virtue by allowing reason to direct every response. One path offers temporary satisfaction followed by lasting unrest. The other may demand immediate restraint but produces enduring freedom. The quality of your life depends less upon how many conflicts you avoid than upon who you become whenever conflict finds you. Let each disagreement remind you that your greatest responsibility is never to defeat another person. It is to preserve your own character. Speak with honesty when honesty is required. Listen with patience when patience serves understanding. Correct without cruelty. Accept correction without resentment. Leave unnecessary battles without regret. Above all, refuse to let wounded pride accomplish what no external enemy ever could, the quiet surrender of your own virtue. When the day ends and silence returns, measure your success by a standard that cannot be shaken by public opinion or personal victory. Ask only whether you remained faithful to reason when conflict tested your soul. If the answer is yes, then no argument was wasted because every challenge became another step towards self-mastery. If the answer is no, then tomorrow offers another opportunity to choose differently. Continue that work without pride when you succeed and without despair when you fail. A life governed by virtue is not built through flawless days. It is built through the steady decision to let reason rule where pride once demanded the throne. Number 8. Practice silence until wisdom governs every deliberate response you make. Most people believe silence is simply the absence of speech. They misunderstand its deepest purpose. Silence is not empty space between words. It is the place where reason is given time to take command before impulse claims the moment. Every unnecessary sentence spoken in haste reveals that the mind has surrendered its authority. Every deliberate silence chosen through discipline reveals that the mind still governs itself. The difference between these two habits shapes the quality of an entire life. Watch carefully what happens when another person challenges you. Before a single word leaves your mouth, your thoughts begin racing toward defense. You search for explanations before understanding the situation completely. You prepare arguments before examining whether an argument is even necessary. You imagine that speaking immediately will protect your dignity, yet more often it exposes your lack of self-command. The tongue frequently moves faster than wisdom. Once words have escaped, they cannot be recalled. They continue living in the minds of others long after your emotions have settled. The disciplined person, therefore, develops great respect for the moment before speaking. He understands that this brief pause often determines whether reason or impulse will shape the outcome. While others rush to fill every silence with opinions, explanations, or complaints, he allows judgment to mature before giving it a voice. This restraint is not hesitation born from fear, it is patience born from discipline. Consider how much suffering begins with words that never needed to be spoken. Friendships weaken because anger demanded immediate expression. Families remain divided because pride refused to remain silent long enough to understand. Workplaces become filled with distrust because careless speech traveled faster than careful thought. Most people regret what they said in moments of agitation far more often than they regret the words they wisely withheld. This truth deserves careful attention because your speech reveals the condition of your inner life. A restless mind produces restless words. An undisciplined judgment produces careless conversation. A person who has not learned to govern his own thoughts cannot expect to govern his tongue. Therefore, the work begins long before conversation. It begins with the training of attention itself. Many people fear silence because it leaves them alone with their own thoughts. They seek constant conversation, endless explanation, and continual distraction because quietness forces them to examine themselves honestly. Yet the person unwilling to remain alone with his own mind will always become dependent upon noise. He escapes examination by surrounding himself with words. He mistakes activity for wisdom because stillness feels unfamiliar. The disciplined life invites you into a different relationship with silence. Instead of avoiding it, begin treating it as a place of instruction. Sit quietly each morning before the demands of the day begin claiming your attention. Do not immediately search for messages, conversations, or entertainment. Allow your mind to settle without outside influence. Notice how quickly thoughts arise demanding attention. Observe them without rushing to follow them. This simple practice teaches you that not every thought deserves expression simply because it has appeared. As you continue this discipline, you begin discovering something remarkable. Many thoughts lose their urgency when they are not immediately spoken. Anger softens when denied instant expression. Fear becomes easier to examine when not strengthened through constant discussion. Pride loses much of its force when it cannot immediately defend itself with words. Silence creates room for reason to evaluate what emotion first presents. Carry this practice into every conversation. Before answering an important question, allow yourself one deliberate breath. During that brief pause, ask whether your next sentence serves truth, justice, or self-control. If it serves only irritation, vanity, or impatience, let it remain unspoken. You lose nothing by refusing unnecessary speech. You often preserve much. Notice also how frequently people speak in order to control what lies beyond their authority. They repeat explanations, hoping to change another person's opinion. They continue arguing long after understanding has become impossible. They defend themselves against every misunderstanding as though reputation could be secured through endless conversation. Yet another person's judgment remains outside your command. Once you have spoken honestly and clearly, further words often become attempts to govern what reason cannot govern. Silence teaches acceptance in these moments. It reminds you that not every misunderstanding can be removed. Not every criticism requires a response. Not every accusation deserves your attention. The desire to answer everything usually arises from wounded pride rather than disciplined judgment. Wisdom carefully chooses which matters deserve speech and which deserve release. There is another danger hidden within unnecessary conversation. Constant speech often weakens observation. While preparing your next reply, you stop listening completely. While searching for clever answers, you miss important truths contained in another person's words. You hear only enough to defend yourself. This habit prevents understanding because your attention remains occupied with your own performance rather than reality. Practice listening with complete attention. When another person speaks, allow your entire focus to remain upon understanding before responding. Resist the urge to interrupt even when you believe you already know what they intend to say. This exercise requires humility because it asks you to value truth more than immediate self-expression. Many conflicts dissolve naturally when people finally begin hearing rather than merely waiting for their turn to speak. Your silence should never become an escape from responsibility. There are moments when justice requires clear words. There are times when another person needs honest correction. There are situations where remaining silent would allow falsehood or harm to continue unchallenged. Stoic discipline does not praise silence for its own sake. It praises speech governed by wisdom. Silence remains valuable only because it prepares speech worthy of being heard. This distinction requires continual examination. Before remaining silent, ask whether silence serves courage or fear. Before speaking, ask whether speech serves virtue or vanity. These questions gradually refine your judgment until your responses become guided by principle rather than impulse. Over time, fewer words become necessary because each sentence carries greater purpose. Observe your own habits throughout the day. Notice how often you explain yourself without being asked. Notice how frequently you seek reassurance through conversation. Notice your tendency to repeat stories that strengthen resentment or justify old grievances. Every unnecessary repetition keeps the mind attached to events that should already have been released. Silence interrupts this cycle. It prevents the past from claiming more of the present than it deserves. The evening provides another opportunity to strengthen this discipline. Before sleep, review the conversations of the day. Ask yourself which words improved the situation and which words merely satisfied temporary emotion. Recall the moments when silence would have protected peace more effectively than explanation. Notice where impatience shortened your listening. These reflections prepare tomorrow's conduct more effectively than regret ever could. Do not expect immediate mastery. The habit of speaking without examination has often been practiced for many years. Such habits surrender slowly, yet every conversation offers another opportunity for correction. Every pause strengthens attention. Every thoughtful response weakens impulsiveness. Every unnecessary sentence left unspoken builds greater confidence in your ability to govern yourself. As your discipline grows, you will begin noticing changes that extend beyond conversation. Your thoughts become more orderly because they are no longer constantly escaping through speech. Your emotions settle more quickly because silence interrupts their momentum. Your relationships improve because others begin feeling genuinely heard rather than merely answered. Even difficult people lose much of their influence because you no longer provide immediate reactions for them to shape. Many people confuse loudness with confidence. They imagine the strongest person is always the quickest to speak. Yet genuine confidence requires no constant display. It rests securely within disciplined judgment. The truly steady person does not fear silence because his worth does not depend upon occupying every conversation. He knows that wisdom often reveals itself through measured restraint rather than continual expression. Remember that your tongue should become the servant of your reason rather than its master. If words emerge before judgment has completed its work, then speech governs thought instead of thought governing speech. Reverse this order deliberately. Let reason examine first. Let virtue decide next. Let speech follow only after both have completed their task. There will be moments when silence feels uncomfortable because it prevents immediate emotional release. Accept this discomfort willingly. Emotional relief purchased through careless speech often creates greater suffering later. Temporary restraint may feel difficult in the moment, yet it protects lasting peace. Discipline frequently asks you to endure small discomforts today in order to avoid greater disturbances tomorrow. Another valuable practice is to spend part of each day performing ordinary tasks without unnecessary conversation. Whether working, walking, or completing responsibilities, resist the urge to fill every quiet moment with words. Use these periods to observe your own thinking, Notice recurring complaints. Notice imagined arguments. Notice desires for approval. Bring each thought before reason without rushing toward expression. This habit gradually strengthens your ability to govern the inner life before attempting to influence the outer one. As your understanding deepens, you will discover that silence also protects humility. Constant speech often encourages the illusion that every opinion deserves immediate announcement. Silence reminds you that learning continues throughout life. It leaves room for correction. It leaves room for observation. It leaves room for wisdom to grow before presenting itself to others. When conflict arises, silence becomes especially valuable. Instead of answering offense with immediate defense, allow yourself time to examine what truly deserves response. Ask whether your words will improve understanding or merely continue hostility. If no useful purpose can be served, accept that not every challenge deserves engagement. Choosing not to participate in needless conflict often demonstrates greater strength than delivering the perfect reply. Remember also that another person's inability to govern their speech does not require you to imitate their example. If they speak carelessly, remain careful. If they raise their voice, preserve yours. If they surrender to impulse, let that become another reminder to strengthen your own discipline. Your character should never become dependent upon another person's behavior. The mind gradually becomes what it repeatedly practices. A life filled with hurried speech produces hurried judgment. A life shaped by thoughtful silence develops thoughtful action. Every deliberate pause strengthens your capacity to respond according to reason rather than reaction. This quiet training prepares you for moments when wise judgment matters most. At the close of every day, ask yourself whether your words reflected the condition of a disciplined mind. Did you speak because virtue required speech, or because emotion demanded release? Did you listen with patience before forming conclusions? Did silence help preserve justice, self-control, and clarity? Let these questions remain with you as faithful companions rather than occasional reflections. Over time, you will notice that fewer words accomplish more. Your conversations become calmer because they are no longer driven by urgency. Your responses become clearer because they arise from examined judgment rather than passing emotion. Your presence itself begins communicating steadiness before you have spoken a single sentence. This quiet authority cannot be manufactured through technique. It grows naturally from a mind that has learned to govern itself first. Practice silence until every response becomes the result of deliberate choice rather than automatic impulse. Practice silence until your speech serves wisdom instead of pride. Practice silence until your attention remains stronger than your emotions. Practice silence until your words no longer seek approval, victory, or revenge, but only the faithful expression of reason. When that discipline becomes your daily habit, every sentence you choose to speak will carry the weight of a character that has first learned the greater achievement, the mastery of itself. Number 9. Release resentment, because anger always wounds your own soul first. Resentment rarely announces itself as your enemy. It arrives disguised as justice. It tells you that holding on to anger proves you remember what happened. It whispers that releasing bitterness means excusing wrongdoing. It convinces you that your pain deserves permanent attention until the world finally recognizes what was taken from you. Because these thoughts appear reasonable at first, many people welcome resentment into their lives without realizing what they have invited. They believe they are protecting themselves while they quietly become prisoners of the very injury they refuse to release. Look carefully at what resentment actually does. It does not change the past. It does not force another person to become wiser. It does not restore lost time, repair broken trust, or erase painful words. Instead, it keeps your own mind returning again and again to events that no longer exist except within memory. The wound may have been created by another person, but resentment makes you reopen it with your own thoughts every single day. In trying to punish someone else, you quietly continue punishing yourself. This is the first truth you must face without excuse. Anger does not begin by harming the one who offended you. It begins by disturbing the judgment of the one who carries it. Before another person feels any consequence of your resentment, your own peace has already been abandoned. Your attention becomes divided, your sleep becomes restless, your conversations become colored by old disappointments, your ability to see the present clearly weakens because your mind remains occupied with yesterday. Many people confuse remembering with clinging. They believe they must preserve anger in order to preserve wisdom. Yet wisdom never requires resentment. You can remember a painful lesson without feeding the emotion that first accompanied it. You can learn caution without becoming bitter. You can establish firm boundaries without allowing hostility to become part of your character. Memory guided by reason becomes instruction. Memory governed by resentment becomes captivity. Ask yourself an honest question. How much of your life is still being shaped by someone who is no longer present? Perhaps the person has already left your life. Perhaps they have forgotten the event entirely. Perhaps they continue living without giving another thought to what happened. Yet within your own mind, the conversation never truly ended. You continue answering words that are no longer being spoken. You continue defending yourself against moments that no longer exist. This habit gives yesterday authority over today. The disciplined person refuses this surrender. He understands that every hour spent nourishing resentment is an hour withdrawn from the work of strengthening his own character. Life is already brief. Why spend what remains carrying burdens that reason has the power to lay down? Time should be devoted to becoming more just, more disciplined, more courageous, and more moderate. Resentment contributes nothing to these goals. It only delays them. Do not misunderstand this teaching. Releasing resentment does not require pretending that injustice never occurred. Stoic discipline never asks you to deny reality. It asks you to see reality completely. If someone acted wrongly, acknowledge it honestly. If trust was broken, recognize it clearly. If distance is now necessary, establish it without hesitation. What must be released is not truth, but the emotional attachment that keeps your own judgment chained to another person's failures. Notice how resentment changes your perception of the world. Once bitterness settles within the mind, every new encounter begins passing through the filter of old pain. You become quicker to suspect hidden motives. You expect disappointment before evidence appears. You interpret ordinary mistakes as deliberate attacks. Your judgment slowly loses its balance because anger trains the mind to search continually for reasons to remain angry. This is why the examination of judgment is so important. Every feeling begins with some judgment about what has occurred. When resentment appears, pause before accepting it as justified simply because it feels powerful. Ask yourself what conclusion your mind has reached. Have you decided that peace is impossible until another person changes? Have you concluded that your happiness depends upon receiving an apology? Have you quietly believed that justice cannot exist unless events unfold according to your preference? These judgments deserve careful scrutiny because they often attach your peace to circumstances that remain entirely beyond your control. The moment you discover that your tranquility depends upon another person's future behavior, you have discovered the true source of your suffering. The problem is no longer merely what happened. The problem is that your own peace has been placed under foreign authority. Stoic discipline begins reclaiming that authority. It reminds you that your character belongs to your choices, not to another person's conduct. Each morning, prepare yourself for this work. Before the day begins, remember any resentment that still seeks attention within your mind. Do not push it away through distraction. Bring it into the light of reason. Ask yourself whether carrying this burden today will help you become more virtuous. Will it improve your justice? Will it strengthen your self-command? Will it increase your wisdom? If the answer is no, then you already know what reason requires. Release the attachment, even if the memory remains. Throughout the day, observe how often old grievances attempt to return without invitation. A familiar place, a passing remark, or an unexpected reminder may awaken emotions you believed had disappeared. Do not become discouraged by their return. Habits built over many years rarely disappear through a single decision. Instead of following resentment wherever it leads, simply notice its arrival. Separate the event from your judgment about it. Allow reason to ask whether continuing this inner conversation serves any useful purpose. Most often you will discover that it does not. Another discipline worth practicing is refusing to repeat your grievances unnecessarily. Many people strengthen resentment each time they retell the story of their injury. They rehearse every detail until bitterness becomes part of their identity. They seek agreement from others not because they desire wisdom, but because they desire confirmation of their anger. This habit keeps the wound alive through constant repetition. Speak about painful events only when doing so serves understanding or practical action. Do not preserve suffering through endless narration. Remember also that every human being acts according to the condition of his own judgment. This truth does not excuse wrongdoing, but it explains much of it. People ruled by ignorance often create unnecessary harm. People governed by fear frequently make unjust decisions. People lacking self-command spread disorder because they have never learned to govern themselves. Recognizing this reality allows compassion to stand beside justice. You may condemn the action without condemning your own soul to permanent resentment. There will be times when forgiveness feels impossible because the injury was deep. Do not force emotions to change before your judgment has changed. Begin instead with what lies within your authority. Decide that you will no longer allow another person's actions to determine the quality of your own character. Decide that bitterness will not become your daily companion. Feelings often follow disciplined judgments slowly, but they rarely follow them at all if those judgments are never made. Each evening, examine your inner condition before sleep. Ask yourself whether resentment guided any of your thoughts, words, or actions today. Did an old memory disturb your present duties? Did anger influence your treatment of someone who had done you no wrong? Did bitterness consume attention that should have been devoted to meaningful work? Observe these moments without self-condemnation. Their purpose is instruction. Tomorrow offers another opportunity to respond differently. There is great strength in recognizing that justice and resentment are not the same. Justice may require firm action. It may require ending harmful relationships, correcting falsehood, or refusing further mistreatment. None of these actions require hatred. In fact, hatred often clouds the very judgment that justice depends upon. A calm mind sees more clearly than an angry one. A disciplined person therefore seeks to act from reason rather than emotional injury. Guard yourself also against resentment directed toward yourself. Many people spend years replaying their own mistakes with the same bitterness they once reserved for others. They condemn themselves endlessly for decisions that cannot be changed. They imagine that continual self-punishment proves responsibility. It does not. Responsibility means learning from error and choosing more wisely today. Endless self-accusation merely keeps the past alive without producing greater virtue. If you have failed, acknowledge it honestly. Accept the consequences that belong to your actions. Correct what can still be corrected, then release what no longer belongs within your control. Carry the lesson forward without carrying endless condemnation beside it. A disciplined conscience examines itself carefully, but refuses to remain trapped in yesterday. As resentment weakens, something unexpected begins to emerge. The energy once consumed by anger becomes available for better purposes. Your attention returns to the present. Your relationships become less burdened by suspicion. Your decisions become steadier because they no longer pass through the distortion of old injuries. You discover that peace was never waiting for another person's apology. It was waiting for your own judgment to become free. This freedom should never make you careless. Continue learning from every painful experience. Build wiser boundaries where necessary. Choose companions of good character whenever possible. Avoid placing yourself repeatedly in situations that encourage injustice. Prudence belongs to virtue. Bitterness does not. One protects the future, the other continually revisits the past. You will know resentment is losing its power when thoughts of former injuries no longer govern your emotional condition. The memory may remain, but it no longer commands your attention. You no longer seek opportunities to justify your anger. You no longer measure each day against old disappointments. Instead, your focus returns to the only place where meaningful progress can occur, your present judgment and your present choices. Do not wait for perfect emotional peace before practicing this discipline. Begin while resentment still feels strong. Every act of self-command weakens its hold. Every decision to return your attention to reason strengthens your freedom. Every refusal to nourish bitterness restores another part of your inner life. When someone has treated you unjustly, they have already failed in their responsibility. Do not multiply that failure by abandoning your own. Let them answer for their choices. You answer for yours. Their actions belong to their character. Your response belongs to yours. Never surrender ownership of your soul by allowing another person's wrongdoing to become the architect of your inner life. As each day comes to its close, remember that the greatest victory is not seeing another person regret what they have done. The greatest victory is discovering that their actions no longer possess the authority to disturb your reason. That freedom cannot be granted by the world, nor can it be taken away by those who once caused pain. It is earned through patient discipline, honest examination, and the steady refusal to allow resentment to rule where virtue alone should govern. Release resentment not because others have earned your peace, but because your own character deserves to remain uncorrupted. Release anger not because injustice should be forgotten, but because wisdom should never be sacrificed to preserve it. Release bitterness because every day spent carrying it is another day given away to the past. Choose instead to govern your own judgment with reason, strengthen your character through disciplined practice, and preserve the quiet freedom that belongs only to the person who has learned that no injury from another is greater than the injury he willingly continues against himself. Number 10. Live honorably until respect becomes irrelevant to your peace. There comes a moment in every life when you must decide which judgment will govern your days. You may continue measuring yourself through the changing opinions of other people, or you may begin measuring yourself by the condition of your own character. This choice is rarely made through a single dramatic event. It is made quietly through ordinary decisions repeated every day. Each time you sacrifice integrity for approval, you strengthen dependence. Each time you remain faithful to reason despite misunderstanding, you strengthen freedom. Your future is shaped by whichever habit you choose to repeat. Many people spend years believing they seek respect, when what they truly seek is reassurance. They hope that admiration from others will silence the uncertainty they have never confronted within themselves. They imagine that if enough people approve of them, peace will finally arrive. Yet approval never satisfies an undisciplined mind. The more it receives, the more it fears losing it. Every compliment creates another attachment. Every criticism becomes another threat. A life built upon external respect remains permanently unstable because it depends upon judgments that never belong to your authority. Look honestly at your own experience. How often has your emotional condition changed because someone recognized your efforts or ignored them? How many decisions were quietly shaped by the desire to appear worthy in another person's eyes? How many opportunities were abandoned because you feared misunderstanding? These moments reveal a painful truth. You were not always choosing according to reason. You were often negotiating with the opinions of others before allowing yourself to act. This habit gradually weakens the soul because it teaches dependence where independence should exist. Instead of asking whether an action is just, you begin asking whether it will be praised. Instead of asking whether your conduct reflects virtue, you ask whether it will improve your reputation. Character slowly becomes secondary while appearance becomes the primary concern. From that moment onward, your peace no longer belongs to you. It rises and falls according to voices you cannot command. The disciplined life begins by restoring the proper order. Character must come before reputation. Virtue must come before recognition. Reason must stand above applause. These priorities do not remove you from the world. They simply prevent the world from becoming the ruler of your inner life. You continue fulfilling your responsibilities. You continue treating others with justice. You continue speaking honestly and acting faithfully. Yet you no longer require constant confirmation that your life possesses value. Your actions themselves become the confirmation. Honor is often misunderstood because people confuse it with public admiration. Genuine honor exists long before anyone notices it. It appears when you choose honesty, although deception would be easier. It appears when you remain fair despite personal disappointment. It appears when you fulfill your responsibilities without demanding gratitude. It appears when your private conduct matches your public words. None of these actions require an audience. Their worth exists entirely within the character they build. Ask yourself a question that reaches beneath appearances. If no one ever praised your discipline, would you still practice it? If your kindness remained unnoticed, would you continue offering it? If your honesty created misunderstanding rather than admiration, would you still remain truthful? These questions expose whether your loyalty belongs to virtue or to approval. The answer matters because only one of these foundations can support lasting peace. Every morning, prepare your mind before stepping into a world filled with judgments. Remind yourself that today people may misunderstand your intentions, they may overlook your efforts, they may criticize choices made with sincere honesty. None of these possibilities alter your responsibility. Your task remains exactly the same. Govern your own judgments, speak truthfully, act justly, accept outcomes that do not belong to your control. By beginning the day with this understanding, you reduce the power that external opinions hold over your thoughts. As the day unfolds, examine your motives carefully. Before making an important decision, pause and ask why you are choosing this action. Are you acting because reason approves, or because you hope someone else will approve? Are you remaining silent because wisdom recommends restraint, or because you fear disapproval? Are you speaking honestly because justice requires it, or because you expect recognition for your honesty? This quiet examination protects your intentions from becoming corrupted by hidden desires. There will be moments when acting honorably costs you something valuable. You may lose opportunities that compromise your principles. You may disappoint people who expected you to abandon your standards. You may watch others receive praise through easier paths while your own effort passes unnoticed. Accept these moments without bitterness. The value of honorable conduct has never depended upon immediate reward. Its reward lies in preserving the integrity of your own character. Understand that another person's respect is always uncertain. It may increase today and disappear tomorrow. It may depend upon incomplete information, changing emotions, or circumstances entirely outside your influence. If your peace depends upon such uncertainty, then your peace remains permanently fragile. Build instead upon something no one else can remove. Build upon disciplined judgment renewed through daily practice. The training of attention becomes especially important here. Throughout the day, notice how often your thoughts drift toward wondering what others think of you. This habit often operates quietly beneath awareness. You replay conversations searching for hidden meanings. You imagine opinions that may never have existed. You worry about impressions formed inside minds you cannot enter. Each of these habits steals attention from the only work that truly belongs to you, governing your own conduct wisely. When these thoughts appear, gently return your attention to present responsibility. Ask yourself what action reason requires now, not tomorrow, not after everyone understands you, not after your reputation has been secured. What duty stands before you in this moment? Perform that duty with complete sincerity. Let your actions become your answer rather than endless concern over invisible judgments. There is great freedom in realizing that you do not need universal respect in order to live honorably. Some people will misunderstand you despite your honesty. Others will criticize you because your principles expose their own lack of discipline. Some may never recognize your intentions at all. These realities should not surprise you. Human judgment remains imperfect. Expecting perfect understanding from imperfect people creates unnecessary suffering. This does not mean becoming indifferent toward others. Stoic discipline never encourages contempt for human relationships. Continue treating every person with fairness, patience, and respect. Listen carefully before judging. Offer kindness without expecting repayment. Fulfill your responsibilities faithfully. The difference is that you no longer demand a particular response in return. Your conduct remains guided by virtue rather than by anticipated reward. Practice another exercise each evening before sleep. Review the events of the day without asking whether people respected you. Instead, ask whether you respected your own principles. Did you remain truthful when dishonesty appeared convenient? Did you preserve justice during disagreement? Did you allow fear of criticism to weaken your courage? Did you seek approval more eagerly than virtue? These questions gradually reshape the standard by which you evaluate your own life. Be especially watchful during moments of success. Recognition can quietly become another form of dependence. Praise feels pleasant, but pleasure easily becomes attachment if left unexamined. Accept appreciation with gratitude, then release it. Do not allow admiration to become necessary for continued effort. Perform today's duties with the same seriousness, whether yesterday brought applause or silence. Consistency reveals that your discipline belongs to reason rather than reputation. Likewise, during seasons of criticism, refuse to conclude that honorable living has lost its value. A disciplined person understands that public judgment often lags behind truth. Some actions reveal their wisdom only after time has passed. Others may never receive recognition at all. This changes nothing. Virtue remains worthwhile because of what it forms within you, not because of what it produces around you. There is another subtle temptation you must examine. Sometimes you begin living honorably in order to earn the reputation of being honorable. This hidden ambition appears respectable while quietly replacing virtue with vanity. True honor never performs goodness as a public performance. It seeks right action even when no one is watching. Therefore, examine not only your behavior, but also the intention behind it. Pure motives strengthen the soul more deeply than visible achievements. As your discipline matures, you will notice that respect gradually loses its emotional authority. Praise no longer inflates your pride. Criticism no longer destroys your confidence. You become steady because your foundation has shifted. Instead of standing upon public opinion, you stand upon daily self-examination. Each honest review strengthens trust in your own commitment to reason. This trust cannot be granted by another person because it is built through your own consistent choices. Continue practicing voluntary honesty with yourself. Whenever you fail, admit it without excuse. Whenever you succeed, remain humble without self-congratulation. Both habits protect you from becoming dependent upon appearances. The goal is never to create the image of a virtuous person. The goal is to become one. Remember also that your time is limited. Every day spent chasing respect is a day unavailable for building character. Life moves steadily forward whether or not people recognize your efforts. Do not postpone honorable living until circumstances become easier or appreciation becomes more certain. Begin now. Every present choice contributes to the person you are becoming. You will eventually discover that the greatest reward of honorable conduct is not admiration from others but harmony within yourself. When your actions agree with your deepest convictions, unnecessary conflict begins disappearing from the mind. You no longer waste energy pretending to be someone else. You no longer divide yourself between what reason approves and what public opinion demands. This unity creates a quiet strength that remains stable even during uncertainty. Another person's respect may come, or it may never arrive. Neither possibility should determine your peace. Their judgment belongs to them. Your responsibility belongs to you. Continue performing what is right because it is right. Continue choosing justice because justice strengthens character. Continue speaking truth because truth preserves integrity. Continue practicing moderation because excess always weakens judgment. Continue exercising courage because fear should never decide your conduct. Each sunrise offers another opportunity to begin this work again. Each difficult conversation offers another chance to choose principle over popularity. Each disappointment reminds you to separate what belongs within your control from what never did. These moments are not interruptions to the disciplined life. They are the very place where discipline is formed. When the day ends and silence returns, ask yourself only one question that truly matters. Did I live today in a manner worthy of my own reason? If the answer is yes, then let that be enough. If the answer is no, then correct yourself tomorrow without self-pity and without delay. Improvement belongs to your authority. Yesterday does not. Live so faithfully according to virtue that respect becomes a welcome gift rather than a necessary possession. Let your peace rest upon the condition of your own character instead of the changing judgments of other minds. Let every action strengthen integrity more than reputation. Let every decision move you closer to wisdom rather than popularity. Then you will possess something greater than admiration, something no insult can diminish, no misunderstanding can corrupt, and no passing opinion can ever take away. You will possess the quiet freedom of a soul that has learned to govern itself according to reason alone, and in that freedom you will discover that the respect you once pursued has become unnecessary because your peace no longer depends upon anything outside your own honorable way of living.